over a period of time, I went through a whole bunch of experiences that were, eye-opening experiences. Most valuably, the mistakes. One of the great things about the markets is it's not easy to beat the markets. And there's a consensus out there that's captured in the markets. And so it makes understanding of economics very practical because I get a scorecard. And based on that scorecard and also positive and negative reinforcement of the pain of losing and so on, I then learn. And I learned that many of the things that I was surprised about were things that never happened in my lifetime before. And that's why I was surprised, but that they happened before. The first time I was clerking on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in 1971, and nobody was accepting dollars. And then I came on August 15th, President of the United States basically says, you're no longer going to get the gold, and we're not going to do that. I walk on the clerking on the floor of the exchange. I figured, wow, what a crisis. We're going to be down a lot. Stock market was up a lot. I didn't know what a currency devaluation was, but they happened many times. The 70s and so on, along those lines, were things that happened in my lifetime. And I got in a habit of every time I would make a decision, particularly painful decisions, that was my cue that I need to do more research. Every time I would, I have an expression, pain plus reflection equals progress. So I started, if I have a painful experience, when I calm myself down, I would say, what can I learn? And I would go back and I would study that. And then I would take that learning and I would write down a principle. I wrote it down. And by the way, I would recommend that you do that. When pain plus reflection, you're going to learn mostly through your pains. And then you reflect well, learn the lessons, take in from others and do your research. And I would then write that down. And so I would do that for everything, all the decision making that I did. So I started Bridgewater, and as mentioned, out of a 2-bedroom apartment, and I grow and I encounter things. So I did basically 2 jobs, the investing job and the running the business as an entrepreneur job. And for all those things, I accumulated a bunch of principles. And what I learned is that everything in life happens over and over again for the same reasons. Pretty much. Slightly different, but by and large for the same reasons. And then for that reason, I knew that I needed to understand things that happened in my lifetime and the mechanics behind it. And that led me to not only experience a lot of debt crisis, because I've been doing this for about 50 years, and in many different places there were all sorts of debt crises. I went through 4 major ones in the United States, and I'm not talking recessions, I'm talking major ones. And then, but in all these countries, emerging markets, Latin American one, I went through a bunch, and I knew that I also needed to study those that were happened before, like the Great Depression or Germany's Weimar Republic and so on, to get a frame of reference. Because how would I know that it wouldn't happen again? And I needed to understand the mechanics. So I did that. And that was one of the reasons, that was the main reason that we anticipated the financial crisis in 2007. We anticipated 2008 financial crisis. And that brought me in contact with policymakers and also Tim Geithner. And Tim Geithner, Hank Paulson, Ben Bernanke. And I do this, by the way, with others in other countries similarly. But in any case, Tim had this compilation of research about all these crises and how I think the same thing happens over and over again. And then Tim, coming in the financial crisis, and Hank Paulson and Ben Bernanke asked me to make a book about it so that it would be captured 2008 financial crisis. That's the book that you're given. And again, it's just that the same thing happens over and over again. So the way that when I don't know about something, the way I do it is I study all the times that thing happened. Let's say, for example, populism. I wasn't used to populism being a big thing in developed worlds. So then I found all the cases of populism, and I wanted to read them all and then come up with a notion of what is an archetypical case. What does the typical one look like? And then by knowing what the typical one looks like, I get that clear into my mind. The same way a doctor who gets to see a lot of different cases starts to figure, okay, well, here's how a typical one happens. And then from there, then you start to study the differences of why is this one different from that one, and then you have a frame of reference. So that's what I did, and that's what I do with everything that I'm studying. I want to look at all of them, and I want to understand how the archetypical and the linkages on that. And that's what I did with the debt crisis. So the book that's there, there has a brief beginning that just says what, how do these things work? The archetypical, I think it's like 60 pages. It won't take you long. And then behind that is three major ones looked at in depth: the Great Depression, then the inflationary depression of Germany's Weimar Republic, and then the 2008 financial crisis looked at in real depth. So you can read the stories of those. And then behind that is a brief review of all those that happened in the last 100 years, which is, there have been 48 cases. And they basically all happen pretty much in the same way, but just with variations. Like a disease might evolve in different ways, but it has variations to it.
By far the best investment you can make is in yourself. If you invest in yourself, nobody can take it away from you.